Ashura Episode 4 probably has one of the most pointless scenes we're gonna see this anime season, while simultaneously having a really important conversation. But the entire setting for said conversation didn't need to be there. We didn't need to see Busty Beauty pretty much naked. I mean, there's some censoring, so we won't get to see everything. I mean, if you're an ass man, you're still eating good. It didn't need to do this. It didn't. And I think anyone who says that it is important for her to be in the bath is a damn dirty liar. But am I complaining? No. No, I'm not. Because honestly, Elia's a pretty attractive anime character at the end of the day. And somehow, I kind of like this. I like it. If you're going to have fan service, do something either comedic with it or have something important happen alongside it. They went with the important. We learn a lot about the systems at play in this world, the abilities, how you can manipulate with these different kind of words, and the idea of like turning the shape of the water into something that looks like ice at first, but it's still just normal water. And then how that transitions into a character who might be the most overpowered character we've met so far. And honestly, I still don't know who's going to win at the end of all this big Coliseum fight to figure out who's going to be the hero and who's going to basically sit on that throne. But Kia might have the most OP ability just at a theoretical level, because she can pretty much manipulate the laws of nature in ways that no one else apparently can. And that's really exciting. So not only do we get the really interesting concept of a character who should be more OP than anyone, we also get a lot of fun fan service with a busty beauty. I'm not complaining about this. I'm not complaining about it at all. I do have a full live reaction to this week's Ishura episode over on my Patreon, so if you'd like to see my full link of thoughts, they're over there if you're interested. I still have no idea how this show's gonna work by episode 12, because I really hope they're gonna do a season 2, because I don't see how this show is gonna be able to stop at a decent stopping point. Because as far as I know, it could be anywhere from episodes 6 to 8 before potentially all the characters who are going to fight at that Coliseum are fully introduced. And once they are, we're clearly not going to have enough episodes to show all the fights. Like, this is the type of story that could either be a 6 light novel run series or a 30 light novel run series. I don't know. Like, this could be a very short story or a very long story. And while, of course, I don't expect this to be a full anime adaptation, I guess the big thing for me is all the characters they've teased so far, I do want to see at least a fight with each of them, whether they make it out alive, whether they do or don't, it doesn't matter. You've shown me every episode a good group of characters, and while I definitely have had favorite moments, like a wyvern with an arsenal of magical weapons, or, just the idea of this elf who can manipulate things in a way that apparently no one else could. Because it's interesting, right? Giving you that lore dump and that kind of world exposition dump of like, okay, do we need to be sitting in the hot springs butt-ass naked? No. But when a character's as busty as Elia, I mean, I don't think clothes were going to keep her in her top anyway, but I digress. I like the fact that we go over all the different kind of words and what they can do, the force and how, like, you could theoretically even fly, even for a brief moment, or the idea of using, like, how you can manipulate, like the doctors would, but you could also do certain things like turning water into wine. All that's really interesting, and it follows a rule system. Like, there's a book of rules that it follows, and you're like, okay, I understand. Insert Kia, who apparently follows no rules and can do anything, and I'm like, okay, that might be the most overpowered thing. I really don't know for sure, though, because every character we've seen has done something impressive in terms of who's going to be fighting at that Coliseum. And it's like, I feel like on paper, they're just like continuing to make each character they introduce seem more deadly than the last, but by the time we circle back to even the first group of characters in episode 1, we're going to be reminded that they may be strong enough to just cut through anything that you manipulate in order to try to stop them. It's a very uncertain battle royale isekai, and that's really exciting. Elia as a character has been there for about 6 months, she said, so she does come from another world, seemingly. She's that character, where Kia seemingly was born into this world. And the idea that, even someone who's come into this world and wasn't here is even able to do this type of manipulation is really interesting. And I kind of just like the idea of the story, because it's something so interesting where it's like, okay, the Demon King, the Demon Lord has fallen, peace is here, but they don't know who the hell did it. So now there's a big-ass tournament to decide who's the most powerful in this world, and people have come from literally other worlds and also have been born here. And it's like, depending on who ends up winning, you could have a very shitty situation. You could have the most evil character of all time sit there as the quote-unquote hero because they're just stronger than everyone else, and honestly, there's nothing that they could do at that point. You've literally given them the hero status, and they've already proven that you can't touch them anyway because of how strong they are. It's just a really interesting concept, and I think with each episode introducing and kind of having like a different story hook, you get connected to these characters, you find them interesting, or most importantly, you just want to see what their abilities will do in an action scene, especially now that we're 4 episodes deep. We have so many different characters, so many different varieties of fighting styles, attack patterns, and even abilities. I have so many different scenarios running through my mind of like, okay, even looking at last week with like an assassin style versus someone who can manipulate nature completely in this way, there's just so much possibility. And even though I'd say this is probably the weakest out of the 4 episodes for me, I still found it to be completely captivating. It flew by. Yeah, there's titties in your face, so that helps, but what she was saying specifically was really interesting world building, and the idea of a character who's that powerful is really cool. Ellie as a character is interesting, daughter of a concubine, very clearly killer. She very much can be that, and it almost feels like she's just trying to escape that life, and this kid is kind of like the best way to do so. It's just quite a fascinating show. It has a really interesting character design and color palette. I mean, sometimes the way the characters pop out, I swear they want to be 3D models, like not as an insult, but just like the way they shade things. It's like, it's kind of uncanny in a brilliant way. The flashback imagery that they did for our girl was really cool. Like, I love the style they did, it was like almost stop motion in a couple of frames. It was really cool with what they did, but it's just like this show, it has way too large of a cast that on paper should make it feel like there's too many characters at play, but they do a really good job at making an episode an introduction episode. It's not just like, here's 12 characters and you're like, okay, who's that? Oh, okay, but this, and you know, you're just getting distracted because you can't follow all the characters. Instead, they might tease a couple of extra characters that aren't the main focus of an episode, but they still circle back to them at some point. So by giving each of these characters a proper introduction, by the time we get to that Coliseum and they all start fighting, we already have a good intro with them, so who's ever on screen, we already are, you know, it's not feeling like they're just randomly dropped in and we don't care if they get killed. There's a lot of characters that have been introduced that if they fall and actually fully die, I'm probably not going to be happy about. Like Kia as a character, if she ends up getting killed by any of the characters we've seen so far, I'm going to be pretty heartbroken because that kid, honestly, she seems quite sweet at the end of the day. Bit of a feisty side to her, but who the hell wouldn't have a bit of a feisty side in a world like this? It just is a really good show, and even when I think episodes like these, which I would say was the weakest episode out of the batch, I still find myself incredibly invested in the world, and honestly, the extra fan service doesn't bother me at all, and if anything, it's a nice little cherry on top, and it's like, hey, if you're gonna sit in the hot springs for 8 minutes, at least talk about something important, and that's what they did. Let me know what you thought of this week's Ishura episode down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're around here, of course, ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload more. And like I mentioned, we have that full live reaction over on my Patreon. Hey, while you're over there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Bryce DeZangles, Sphinx, Andre, and Darthwin Wright. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.